Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Today's topic is using social networking to find a job. Our guest is Dr. Tom Denham. He's the owner and manager of Careers in Transition. We're happy to have you back again.
It is great to be back, and this is going to be a fascinating topic.
Well, it's certainly timely because I guess I'm living in the past too because it's been timely for quite a while, but more and more people are doing it, and so it's more timely for me, I guess, than some other people. But social networking, and now I don't know if I'm supposed to say online social networking.
I think that's the social networking that we're
That's
talking about.
what you really
Yes.
mean. Okay.
Yes.
That's a question. Let's define it, and that'll help some of us. What is social networking?
Social networking is just what you said. It is online networking. But let's go back and thinking about it. It first started with MySpace many years ago, and that was primarily the domain of kids getting on there, sharing their inappropriate pictures, and saying inappropriate things.
I almost forgot about MySpace.
MySpace, that's exactly right. So MySpace took off, and then Facebook came on the scene and crushed MySpace. And what we're really talking about is the internet on the next level. It's also called Web 2.0. So now you have all these other social networking sites. For example, you have Facebook, you have LinkedIn and Twitter. Those are the big three, but you have MySpace, you have Friendster, you have Plaxo, Merchant Circle. You have other ones that people use, but the three dominant ones in the market are Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Now, you mentioned all those things, and Facebook was the social network movie was about that, which was, I thought, a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're used in so many ways, and if you watch the movie, you probably don't, and that's all you really knew about, which there's probably only 10 people who fit that category, but but if you go by the movie, it seemed more about meeting girls, making money, not from the point of view of somebody who was a part of it, but from the people who were starting it, and being power hungry and just competitive and really into computers. Mm-hmm. How do we want to define social networking in terms of what we're really interested in, and that is finding a job?
Right. Well, you have to decide your personal social networking policy. And I should also say that social networking is here to stay. It's not a fad. It's not a trend. Social networking is going away about as much as your email is going away. And we had a lot of resistance when email came out. People say, well, I don't do that. I still write letters, and I don't need all this technology. And that's kind of
Send me a memo.
Send me a memo, exactly, or call me on the phone, or stop by my office. And now, as we know, email's here to stay, and it's only growing in our inbox as we continue, as we speak on the tape of this show. And social networking is having the same kind of effect. People are saying, I don't use MySpace or Facebook or LinkedIn, but that will certainly change too. You have to have your own personal policy when it comes to these social networking sites. Otherwise, you'll be on it all day long. So, for example, Facebook, there are over 500 million people using Facebook and over 50 million people using LinkedIn. So there are 500 million people using Facebook because an 18-year-old kid who does not use LinkedIn is going to use Facebook. My mom uses Facebook. She doesn't have LinkedIn. We in the business community or in the professional community consider LinkedIn the Facebook for professionals. And then you have Twitter, which is casting out 140 characters to lots of people. So they all have their own niches. So you have to decide what you're going to use these for. So for example, you and I are on LinkedIn,
right,
but there's no way in heck you're going to get into my Facebook because you're not a friend.
Right, and I'm not signing up.
You're right.
I have problems with it.
And there's no offense that you're not getting into my Facebook, even if you had an account. That is strictly private for me.
I see.
That's strictly private. But we'll talk about ways of how to use Facebook as part of your what's called social media profile. So if we look at the job search, it's your resume, cover letter, and your social media profile that are going to drive this process.
Now that's new.
Totally new.
I mean, it used to be letter, cover letter, and a resume. That was it. You just added a third thing.
Right. And you're either going to be fast or be last. If you do not stay up on social networking, I guarantee some other candidate is going to be.
Okay, so we got different purposes, and that's really neat. I hadn't thought of that. I'm not interested the least bit in Facebook because I don't want other people sharing things that I did when I only wanted to share it with them.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have that issue. So let's go back and say, now exactly what's the difference? LinkedIn, how do you use LinkedIn?
Okay. Let's mostly focus on LinkedIn because that is how it can help people the most in the job market. So LinkedIn is like what I call an electronic resume and portfolio. So you go into LinkedIn and you can set up this profile very much like you would set it up on a dating site where you put in your education, your experience, and it's completely free. The other things you can put on there are references. So for example, when I'm working with a client and they've had a good experience, they may go into my LinkedIn and write a reference for me. That's helpful for me when somebody's trying to decide whether to be a client and they can see all my references on there.
So that's kind of a neat way to look at the two, what you can do with it, physically what you can do with it. You didn't say photos. You didn't say I put my photos of myself at work at the desk on there or whatever.
I don't, but getting back to Facebook, I have my personal Facebook page, which is locked on the highest privacy level. And then I also have a Careers in Transition Facebook page.
So you can do your company or your
I can do
brand.
my company, my brand. Dr. Tom is my brand. So if you go into Facebook and type in Careers in Transition, you will get the company page, which also has lots of pictures of me doing speaking engagements, things like that.
Okay. So
that's one more way that somebody can find me. Also, with all of these social networking sites out there, as an entrepreneur, people can find me on the internet. If you type in Dr. Tom Denham, I'm going to come up #1, or you type in Careers in Transition, I'm going to come up at #1. It's very important when people are trying to find me on the internet. And that's what people want to do. They want to find you.
So in that case, that's a slightly different use than finding a job. You're actually using it for your job.
I'm using it for my job. But we also have to understand that you are your brand. And in today's economy, you're an entrepreneur. You have a set of education and skill sets. You've got to brand yourself in your field, and you're going to put yourself out in the marketplace, because the job that you have today may be secure or may be unsecure, but where are you going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? Now, we should probably get back to LinkedIn and the other ways you can use it. And we know that networking is the #1 job search strategy. So LinkedIn, I look at LinkedIn as high touch and high tech.
That you need to explain.
How
do you touch somebody with that?
Well, let's say you and I go to an Albany Colonie Chamber of Commerce networking function, and I meet you, I talk to you, we get along well, you give me a business card. I'm going to go back to my office, send you a LinkedIn invitation, and then you're going to go into my LinkedIn database in there. What do I do with that business card?
I put mine in a stack. I don't
Of
know
course.
what you do.
And if I go down to your office, I've got a stack of cards in there. And what do you do with them?
Nothing.
You do nothing with them. And that's the
but
problem.
If I knew I couldn't find somebody any other way, I sometimes, once in a great while, I go through and I go, I know I've got his card.
Yeah, and how long does that take?
A little too long.
Yeah,
I've never put them in order.
Exactly. So if you're on LinkedIn, let's say how many cards you got on your desk?
A few hundred.
A few hundred. Okay. So let's say you're going to go downstairs and try to find my card. in this stack of 100.
And it's probably way down at the bottom because I haven't gotten your card for a long time.
And it's taking up space in your drawers there. So the other way to do it is you go into LinkedIn, we're connected. It's like having that business card into this account. You type in Dr. Tom Denham, and up I come, there's all my contact information. It's almost like you could take the business cards and just rip them up and throw them out. Now, this is all a free service. They do have sort of the gold standard services, and that's where they make their money, and also on advertising as well.
Okay. I don't know which way to go here. I'm intrigued by the gold standard. Just tell me what that is. What do you get for that?
I don't know. I don't have it. And
I don't either.
I don't have it, and I don't need it.
guess
And 95% of the people that are on LinkedIn don't have it and don't need it.
Then my second part of the question, we'll go back to that. When we defined a job search before, or some of the tools that you used, we said cover letter, we said resume,
and
social
before we
media
always
profile. To get an interview.
Yeah.
Okay, but now we have this third thing.
Yeah, social media profile. Social media is also known as social networking.
But the way you said what you just said made me think this is not something that is just part of your job search. You really need to be building this
brand.
Right now, or you've started already, right?
Right. So the first thing, I mean, if we go back to the career development process, the first step is self-assessment, and that's where you're trying to define who you are. And who you are your skills, your values, your interests, and your personality traits. So you have to get clarity there. Then the second step is, where are you going? So you've got to get clear on your professional goals, and then you can decide on an action plan. So when you're building your LinkedIn profile, you have to be clear on who you are.
So that you know what you're doing with it.
What you're doing, and then what you're offering to people. I'm a career counselor. I'm not marketing myself as a nurse, a doctor, a civil engineer, or a librarian. So for you, to maintain your professional health, you have to market yourself as a librarian and building your brand as a librarian and continuing in that expertise.
But now that you said that, it's kind of interesting to me because I can visualize, and what I see is, because I'm not looking for a job, I'm trying to be more effective in the job I have. So my social network, as far as LinkedIn is concerned, doesn't look like somebody who's just trying to get a library job, because I add librarians like, okay, no problem. But somebody like you, I want them in there because it fills a need for providing library service.
Right.
And
right.
so...
Well, here's another thing to consider. I know you're not looking for a job, but in fact, you should be looking for a job, because we are all susceptible to downsizing, except for those of us that have our own businesses. We can't really downsize ourselves unless we're not doing our job.
You really get angry.
So the thing is, what you want to do is you want to have this safety net. The person with the most people in LinkedIn wins, meaning that the bigger your network, the more of a safety net that you have. If you were to lose your job, somebody comes in and says, you're fired, downsize, we don't have the money, you're going to go to this high-tech part, and then you're going to take this and you're going to move it into the high-touch realm of actually meeting with people and networking that way.
Okay.
It's a fantastic tool to be able to manage all that entire drawer full of business cards that are just sitting there and not doing anything. The other thing is, with a business card, if you were to change jobs, you're going to go to the Bethlehem Public Library.
Wrong.
What's that?
It's wrong.
Yeah, the card is old. It's stale. You got to rip up the card. You'd have to get a new card. With the LinkedIn, you can go in and change your information. So that's why it's so critical that viewers need to have this social media presence out there, because even if you have a job and even if you feel it's like secure, 5 years from now, you're going to want to have that network, and it takes time to build up your network.
I can think of maybe 3 reasons why somebody might be a little slow to get on the ball here. One, it might seem so complicated. You know, I talked to somebody who said somebody gave me a camera and it was just too complicated. Most of the cameras today, you set them on automatic and you don't have to be complicated, but they have just a fear of computers and doing, and that's a demographic probably. And then there are those that are afraid of some aspect of it, like, I don't know, it's some kind of weird, maybe I'm going to be connected to people that I don't like, or they're going to do something. They'll find out. I don't know what the fears are, but they're fears, right, of how it's going to be used. I'm not sure what I was thinking the third one was. Maybe
I know
they just
what it
don't
was.
understand it.
No, time.
That's a good one anyway.
It's time. These are all legitimate concerns, and also the concerns that we had when email came out. I don't have the time for email. I don't understand email. I'm afraid that some personal information is going to get out there.
And look at the cables and things that we have in the State Department.
Right, exactly. So, you again, going back to your social networking policies, what do you want to put out there and what do you not want to put out there? That's why you will not see a lot of things on Facebook, because I have pictures of my daughter in there, and I don't want the whole world looking at those things. In the realm of Facebook, I have about 300 quote-unquote friends. You actually have to be a friend to be in my Facebook. I have over 1,000 people in my LinkedIn. And I do know those 1,000 people. I will have had to have met you. You will have to have been a client. And because I have so many in there, people want to tap into my network. And if I don't know you, or if I've never met you, I just ignore them. I ignore the request.
I don't want to forget that sentence you just said. So let's just repeat it now, because my memory's not so good.
Okay.
You're not going to get in there if you haven't met them. Let's go back over those things. Because I think when somebody thinks about how do I grow my network,
right.
Well, they try to get you to say, well,
right.
What about these people? Oh, gee, that would be nice.
So the key is the high touch and the high tech. I'm going to be high tech. I'm going to be high touch with somebody before I bring them into the high tech, into my LinkedIn.
So you've got to get that first.
I have to do that first. But the nice thing about the high tech is that's how I can manage them. I can organize them. It's like putting somebody in your database.
I think that's a revelation.
And that's the nice thing about it is once you get into the database, I can easily connect with you. I can keep up with you. I can see where you're going professionally. I can see how many connections that we have together. I can see what different groups we're involved in. That's the beauty of it.
So when you go back,
the other beauty is it's free.
Well, okay, we both like that. When you turn it that way, which is really great, that now you're almost back to what we just called networking, which
right.
I think networking was social networking, because you don't talk to horses and birds and
right.
things, it's people. We've talked about networking before, and it was about going to chambers and meeting people and asking questions and
developing relationships.
Right. So that comes first, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
That always comes first. The high touch is always more important than the high tech. And I tell people, you have to go from, in Facebook world, you have to go from virtual friends to actually real friends. And virtual friends are fine, but you can send a message to all your virtual friends very quickly, but that's not going to build relationships like if you were to spend time with them. So let's just take my LinkedIn, for example. Okay, so I've got 1,000 people in this LinkedIn. If you divide them up into 3 circles, 900 are in the outer circle of lesser known contacts. 80 are in the middle circle. And then 20 are in the inner circle. The bigger my circle gets, the bigger the other circles are going to get. If I lost my job, I wouldn't go to the outer circle. I would print out my LinkedIn people, and then I would go to the inner circle, and I would start networking there and go outward from there.
And then you're hoping that they have a connection to
somebody else that might have an opportunity, or could they make an introduction?
Right. Yeah, I read an article very recently that talked about people don't get jobs because they know the boss. They get jobs because they find out about the job, and somebody in the company says, yeah, this is a resume, why don't you take a look at that one, right?
Right.
I think you've said that before.
Yeah.
So you're not trying to make friends with Bill Gates to get a job with Microsoft. Not that it wouldn't help. But
right. Yeah, and again, it goes back to your social networking policy. My goal is not to have every single person I possibly can in my LinkedIn. I don't need to be friends with somebody in India that read an article of mine on my blog I don't want that person in there. I don't have any relationship to that person. That person wants something from me. They want to mine my connections, and I won't allow them to do that. But I do have an interest in my clients. If my clients work with me, they're allowed to go into my LinkedIn and then mine that for their job search. So in my work, it's very critical. And for the viewers, the bigger your network, the more safe you're going to be. If you get laid off and you only have 15 people in your network, that's not, the best place. You haven't nurtured that network.
Let's talk about the type of people in the network. I can imagine somebody having a big network. None of those people have jobs, say.
No.
They're all looking. They're all your competitors. What kind of people do you want in your network? How do you look at a potential person and to put them in your network? Maybe you've answered this before.
Well, my personal philosophy is every person has something to offer me. Every person can teach me something. So I want to have as many real relationships into my network. If I need a plumber, I'm going to contact this person because they might know somebody. If I wanted an introduction to somebody at the Guilderland Public Library where I wanted to do a speaking engagement, you would be the first person I'd contact.
Great.
And I feel like I have something to offer, but everyone has something to offer. You might not need that person right now, and they might not need you, but it's good to have them in there. The bottom line is you have to develop relationships. It's always about relationships and the quality of the relationships, not just the quantity.
That question that I just asked, I thought maybe you answered it, and my problem was that when you set me and turned me around and said, you need to know the person first or meet the person first, you need the high touch first, that answers a lot of questions that come up later of how do I create this network?
That's exactly right. I get LinkedIn requests every day. I get Facebook requests every day. And I ask myself deliberately the question without hitting accept. I say, how do I know this person? What is the value of me putting this person into my network? What do they get out of it? I mean, really dive into that. What do I get out of it? And what is the value of having my network? For my Facebook page, having 300 people, I'm very content with that. I don't need to have 5,000 people in my Facebook. I would love to have 5,000 people in my LinkedIn, but I want to make sure I know those people. And each month, I'm putting in about 20 people to my LinkedIn. When I first started out, I was putting in 100, and then the next month it's 150. So it tends to go like this, and then it tends to level up.
And now you're interested in quality.
Now, well, yeah, I've always been interested in quality, but now I'm just very selective of who gets in there.
Well, I guess once you've got a certain level, you've already done the easy part. Also.
Right. On LinkedIn it'll say when you have 500 plus connections, and that's very attractive to people. They say, "Wow, Tom Denham knows a lot of people out there." It's validation that he must be doing something right. But that's also a flag that I want to tap into his network and get what I can get out of it.
I think you mentioned the final reason why somebody might not decide to get started on something like LinkedIn, and that was time.
Time, yeah.
From the other standpoint, we've seen people who are addicted to these kind of tools, and they spend all their time fiddling with the computer. How much time, do you have a kind of a rule of thumb, or is it just...
I probably spend 20 minutes to a half an hour every day on it. But you know what? I don't have a computer at home. I don't have the internet at home. I don't have video games, and I don't have cable. So on Friday, when I leave the office,
stays behind.
I am completely disconnected, completely. And that's because I'm disciplined enough to set limits. And that's what we have to do. You have to, again, going back to your social networking policies, how much time am I going to devote to this? Because you're right, you can get on this at 7 o'clock at night and you can be on it for another 4 hours. It's just one more thing that is demanding of our time.
And yet, if you really follow that great advice that you gave us a few minutes ago, and that was you meet them first, that really solves a lot of the problems. That's a lot harder. It's going to take a lot more time, right?
Right, and that's more effort. And we don't have a lot of time to do that kind of thing.
Right.
So some people are doing it backwards. They're meeting all these people online, and they really don't know them. They really don't know them. And that's where you can run into problems, is people get into your Facebook, and they're looking at your pictures of what you did during the weekend and your family and things like that. And I just don't think that's the way to go.
Now, in terms of an image, your LinkedIn is available to employers.
Your LinkedIn is available to employers.
And so
you're going to have your
website.
education, you're going to have your experience in there. If you have recommendations, that's only going to validate you. If you have 200-300 people in your LinkedIn, when an employer or a recruiter looks at your LinkedIn, it will show how many people that you share in common. So
with the recruiter.
With the recruiter. So this recruiter may call some of these people and say, "What's this person like?"
So you better put people on there that's going to say something reasonable.
That's right.
About you.
Again, that's why you want to have good quality people in there, because if the recruiter calls this person and says, "What's this person like?"
and they say, "I'd
have no idea. I'd never met him before."
That's not good.
That's not good. People are using their resume, their cover letter, but they are going into Google and they're doing name searches on you, just like a background check. Well, it's here to stay.
I know there's some really good reasons why people should still do background checks, but that's a great addition to it.
Yeah. The other thing I want to talk about is, on LinkedIn, there are job listings. So, for example, if you go into the Chamber of Commerce and you become a member of that group, you actually have to submit a request. There's 2,000 people plus that are members in there. There's a jobs button.
Now, do you have to be a member of the chamber to join the group?
That I don't know. They may have a policy themselves. I have a group called the Careers in Transition Forum. So if you go into LinkedIn and you search on groups, you click on Careers in Transition Forum. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can belong to that group, but they're not a member of my network.
Can they post to the group?
They can post to the group. So what I use it for is both for professionals and for my clients, where I can post an article on resume writing, which might benefit you, or I will post a job listing. So recently somebody sent me some sales job listings. So I posted them in there. It went out to the 100 people that are in this group, some of which are my clients. So when somebody gives me a job, I can put it on my website, or I can post it to this group, and it immediately gets sent to those people. And that way, I don't have to send out a dozen emails to some of my clients.
Now, can you have more than one group yourself?
I think you can have several groups, but then again, you're managing lots of different groups. Now,
depending on your product, it could be a useful thing, if they're really depending on this information.
Right. So I've created the Careers in Transition Forum, but I'm a member of the Capital Region Human Resource Association and American Society for Training and Development. I'm a member of over 40 groups. One of the groups I'm involved in is called Mountaineers. And I went in there and I posed a question. I said, I'm going to climb Mount Shasta next year. How do you fly there? 13 people.
Wow.
Gave me responses.
Was it the same answer?
It was most of the answers were the same, and that's what I was looking for. I was looking for different opinions. I got 13 different opinions, most of which said fly to Sacramento. Extremely helpful.
That's a lot of answers to a question, and I don't even know where this mountain is.
It's in Northern California.
I assume it's somewhere in the West Coast.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you could do a Google search on it, right?
Any other advice on LinkedIn? Because that does seem to be the best.
I think the first thing that you have to do is go to LinkedIn.com.
Okay.
And just
get started.
Okay, so you're going to get in there, and the hardest part is not being overwhelmed. You go in there and you create a profile. Your profile does not have to be 110% complete like mine is. Create a profile, get your name in there, get some basic information, and send a couple requests out, receive a couple requests, and then revisit it in a week or two, and then go back again, and then add some more things.
There are probably books, and you can read articles to try to understand a little bit about how it works.
That you can. I mean, I sit down with people, and I teach them how to use LinkedIn.
So there's also job coaches.
Yep, job coaches can do that. Richard, this is just not going away. You've got to get with it. It's kind of like, 15, 20 years ago, people were saying, oh, I don't need a website. I mean, who doesn't have a website now?
Well, not too many. And if you're looking at a company, it's hard to find a company without a website. You do find a few that have very few that have poor websites. Not many.
People are doing business online. They're trying to find you online. Some people don't want to be found, and I understand that. But if you're going to stay competitive in this market and you want to do a job search, you want to be found. Because if you're not found, somebody else is going to be found.
Why can't I go to a restaurant and make my dinner reservation? Why do I have to call? I mean, it's amazing that the things that we start expecting, and then when we don't get it, when we don't find somebody, we actually have what's wrong with these people?
You've got to have a first-class resume. You've got to have a polished cover letter. You have got to invest in your own personal career development, and you've got to manage it by yourself. The company's not going to take care of you anymore. And one of the tools in your arsenal is your social network.
So there we are. I want to thank you. That was some really good advice.
A very exciting topic that I'm sure in a year will be completely different.
Well, then you'll have to come back. We'll do this again.
Happy to.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, Dr. Tom. And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, that you tune in again next time, and that you have a great week. Take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.